I have a question for you. Have you ever taken one of those personality quizzes online? Like, what Disney princess would you be? Or if you were a flavor of tea, what flavor would you be? And you got your result and you thought, yeah, that's cool. That feels kind of right, but not totally right. Because when I was 12 years old, a video game looked me in the eye and said, you are a Piplup. Piplup. And it changed my life. Hi, so my name's Jenny and I'm a music teacher, and this video is going to be pretty different from my usual stuff. Usually I use YouTube to post my music compositions and my performances, but over the last few years I've gotten a lot of questions about this random side project, so I figured, okay, I need to shed some light on this. This is my Pokemon personality quiz. I'm just going to pull back the curtain and show you guys how and why I spent a ridiculous amount of time trying to answer this one extremely important question. What Pokemon am I? Actually, part 1, the childhood origin story. Okay, so when I was growing up, one of my favorite video games ever was Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Darkness. And if you've never played it or heard of it, here's the deal. Instead of playing as a trainer where you train Pokemon, you become a Pokemon. And in order to do that, the game has to determine which one you would be. So it asks you some personality questions, stuff like, oh, there's one piece of dessert left over. Do you take it quietly or ask if anybody else wants it? And then, based on your answers, the game assigns you a nature. And then, boom, you wake up as a Pokemon, and it's like the Pokemon you were destined to be. And it was like this super cool moment, like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been meant to be based on who I am inside. And I got Piplup, which was already my favorite starter Pokemon. So obviously 12-year-old me was convinced that this game had unlocked some deep cosmic truth about my soul. And then something kind of bothered me about it, because this quiz tells you your nature, and then it kind of just arbitrarily decides what Pokemon you are based on what nature you are. Apparently, my personality is quirky. Okay, so I'm quirky. Okay, cool. But why does that mean that I got a little penguin? Who decided that all quirky females are penguins? And why are all Vulpix relaxed? And why can't I be a sassy Vulpix? I like Vulpix and I'm kind of sassy. How did they come up with this, really? How did we get here? And then I was also wondering, this pool of results is pretty small. There's over 1,000 Pokemon now. How do I know that I'm meant to be a Piplup? How do I know that for sure? What if none of these default options actually fit me? What if I'm actually like a Gardevoir or a Weezing, or let's be honest, something really dramatic like Yveltal? Or what if I'm Giratina? I don't know. So around 2008, I made a very bold and extremely unhinged decision. I'm gonna make a personality quiz that can fit every single Pokemon in it. So when you take this quiz, you know exactly which one you are with beyond a shadow of a doubt, because we've considered every single option and you know exactly which one you are. For science! And also so I could determine which of my siblings I could defeat in battle. Part 2, the Teenage Chaos Era. So I decided early on that instead of using the 16 natures, I would just base it on the 18 Pokemon types. Water, grass, fire, normal, fighting, electric. Because those types kind of seemed more naturally integrated into the Pokemon universe anyway. They just seemed more important. It would be more cool to be able to say, oh, I'm an electric type, or I'm a dragon type, or I'm a poison type. And also, types kind of already feel like personality archetypes. Why not lean into that? Water types, they're emotional, they cry a lot. It's me. Hi, I'm the water type. It's me. Dark types, they're mysterious, they're guarded, they're kind of emotionally complicated. Psychic types, big brain energy, they're a know-it-all that can read your mind. Steel types, rigid principles, no nonsense, they would make a good judge. Grass types, gentle, nurturing. So I started assigning vibes to all the different types. And then I made my first draft. There'd be a question, and you would say, I agree or I disagree. And if you agree, it would give you a point towards that specific type. Or if you disagree, it would not give you a point towards that type. That was my first draft. And looking back, it was really bad, like adorably bad. One of the questions was, are you very energetic? Yes or no? Cool, that's like 60% of the human population. Very effective question there. But I was 14, I didn't know personality theory yet, I was just having fun. I made my questions and assigned them all to the specific personality types that I thought they lined up with the most, and then I ran into my first real problem. You take the quiz and you add up all your points for all the different types and you figure out what type you are. You get a result, like, oh congrats, you're a normal flying type, pick your favorite bird, and that's what Pokemon you are. But then, what if you get water type? There's over 50 pure water types. Part 3, the 10-year break. At that point, I tried narrowing it down some more. I'm only going to consider fully evolved Pokemon. Okay, that's still a big group. So now I'm only going to consider the most popular ones. That's still a big group. Now I'm going to break it into like base stats, like attack and defense and speed. Like some of them have really high attack and some of them have really high speed. They kind of have different specialties. So I thought, oh, I know what I can do. I can use a career aptitude test to map somebody's ideal job to what Pokemon stat they'd be highest in, and then that would kind of narrow it down from their Pokemon type result. If you would do best as like a teacher or a nurse or a doctor, then that would correlate to a high HP stat. Or if you would do really well with like construction or like manual labor type stuff, that's high attack. Or if you're like a smooth talking, quick talking salesperson, marketing type, then you got high speed. You get the idea. Did it work? Kind of, but it was messy and exhausting and deeply flawed, and so I did what any reasonable person would do, and I abandoned the project for 10 years. Because college happened, and life happened, and marriage happened, and I just didn't have time to think about it or look at it, even though I wanted to, but it just wasn't going to happen. And then, a pandemic happened. Part 4. Oh no! Now I have time! Suddenly, I was stuck at home with hours to spare, so I did 2 things. Number 1, I wrote my first music album, and you should listen to it and follow me on Spotify. Number 2, I resurrected the Pokemon quiz, and I asked myself, how do actual psychologists come up with personality quizzes that actually work? I did this big deep dive into Myers-Briggs and Big 5, and I eventually found the HEXACO personality model. HEXACO is 6 traits: honesty, humility, emotionality, extroversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, and openness to new experiences. The theory is every single human being has different measures of those 6 traits that make them unique. If I mapped the Pokemon types, the 18 types, onto those 6 traits, 18 is divisible by 6 very beautifully. And I could create a very balanced system where every type has equally balanced measures in each of those traits, so no type is like a better person than another type. Every Pokemon type has different strengths and flaws. For example, water types are going to score very high in emotionality. Steel types are going to score very high in conscientiousness because they're unmoving, right? They're rigid in their principles. Psychic types, very high in openness to new experiences because they're open-minded. Get it? Okay. Dark types are going to be very low in extroversion because they don't open themselves up to people very easily. You got to kind of dig deep before they open up to you, right? And it worked. I was like, yes! Part 5, what the HEXACO? For this new version of the quiz, each question, it doesn't give you points towards fire type or water type or steel type or whatever. It gives you points towards HEXACO traits. And then once it calculates what your traits are, those traits get converted into type points using the matrix. So instead of this answer equals water, it's this answer kind of nudges you towards water and fire and grass and flying all at once in different measures. So it tells you what your number 1 top matching type is. It matches a very specific profile of personality traits. And then you got your top 4 subtypes, just for some more nuance. And then you get a full personality breakdown. So you get psychoanalyzed to death. You're welcome. And yes, I built the entire thing in Google Sheets because I cannot for the life of me code in C++, but Google Sheets, I can do Google Sheets. I just love how visual it is. It just makes so much sense to my brain. I love it. Part 6, tiebreakers and soul searching. So we still had a couple of problems. Sometimes people still got some ties, like some types kind of tied for first place, or just some types kind of correlated too closely, and it just felt like the answers weren't quite nuanced enough. So I added a part 2, where we're not asking questions about your specific personality type, but we're asking questions about, like, what are you into? Like your favorite music, your favorite books, what career do you want? What's your favorite food? What kind of people are the most annoying to you? What's your dream date? These questions don't override your personality, they just kind of fine tune it. So let's say you really scored low in honesty, humility. So you're kind of self-absorbed, but we still love you, it's fine. But we need to know what specific flavor of self-absorbed are you? Are you dark or fairy or electric? These questions are going to narrow that down for us. Part 7, the final boss. The Pokédex is just too heckin' big. So even now that we have a pretty darn good method of finding out what type you are, we still have the problem of there's 1,000 Pokemon. And if you get water type, you still have to disambiguate between 50 water types. So you know what I did? In the Pokédex, I wrote down what type each Pokemon is, but also I gave them a hidden secret type, actually two hidden secret types. Those types kind of reflect their design or their lore or their move pool to make each Pokemon more specific. For example, let's say Superior and Leafeon are both grass types. But Serperior kind of looks like a dragon, so Serperior got dragon as a hidden type. Leafeon evolves from a normal type, and it learns a lot of fairy type moves. So Leafeon got normal fairy as its hidden types. So let's say that you're a grass type, but you got dragon as one of your subtypes. You're a lot more likely to get Serperior as your result than Leafeon. And my husband, who's an absolute legend, he came up with a formula that converts your type score into percentages, and it weighs the main types more than hidden types, and it calculates a unique percentage match score for every single Pokemon in the Pokédex based on the hidden types I gave it. There's no rigid paths and no arbitrary cutoffs and having to kind of decide which ones are more popular or not. We can include the entire Pokédex because we have a formula for it. Part 8, the final result. So now when you take the quiz, you get your number 1 Pokemon type with a full personality analysis. You get your top 4 types. You get your number 1 Pokemon match. You get to find out what your cosmic destiny is. If you woke up in the Pokemon world, what would you be? And then you get to find out your top 10 Pokemon overall, because, you know, it's kind of interesting to look at that. And you also find out which Pokemon you match the least. And if, like me, if you're a huge nerd and you just want to know about this, you can go to the next tab and you can see your entire personal Pokédex ranked by match strengths. And honestly, I'm so ridiculously proud of it. So if you get a chance, I hope you go take the quiz, because this was a huge labor of love for me, and I'm just so excited about how it turned out. If you've ever wondered what Pokemon you'd actually be, not just what's popular, not just what's cute, but what really matches you, because it's in your soul. This was destined for you. Go take the quiz and let me know what you got. And please tell me honestly, like, did your answer feel right or was anything off? Because I'm always tweaking this. I'm always trying to improve it every single day. I read every single comment I get about it. So let me know what your impression was of your result. And I would be really curious to know which one of us would win in battle. And probably I would lose because I'm a bunny. I'm not a Piplup anymore, but that's okay. I have embraced my inner Azumarill. I am a bouncing blue bunny. And I'm still a water type. I always knew that about myself. I'm a Cancer. It makes sense. Thank you for coming along with me on this very nerdy journey. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. And I hope you have a blessed day.